Don't forget. Okay, we are recording. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We are at session 5 in the Implementing Acquisitions in Alma series. And so let's go ahead and move through the presentation. When I designed this series, I was asked to do this series. I designed it. I, expected libraries to already be live on Alma, and I know not everyone might be here. We're going to be talking. Okay, I just saw a quick message come in. We are going to be talking about more than import profiles. I just saw this note pop up. So, I mean, if you can't stay, that's fine, but we're going to be doing more than just import profiles. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different types of integrations. Is that what tell me that's not what that, yeah, the title is automating the whole acquisitions process. So more than just import profiles. So when I designed the series, I expected libraries to be live on Alma, or I expected libraries to not be using acquisitions at all, or maybe not be using it to its full extent. And I always want to push you to use Alma as much as possible. Make Alma do that work for you. You have seen this slide. I think I've had it in every session. I've also created the document that's available on the dashboard. This a selection of user roles related to acquisitions. It's not all of them, it's some of them. And then at the end of this documentation, as I scroll down, there is a glossary. This session has a lot of acronyms, and I've got them all in here as well. So I will be explaining them to you, but that's a good tool to have just to get you familiar with the jargon. We love jargon, don't we? We love acronyms in our industry. So our topic this session is called Automating the Acquisitions Process in Alma. We're going to be talking about automating workflows. Then we are going to start with talking about import profiles, and that is called EOD, or embedded order data. That's what we're using to automate the process. Then we're going to talk about another communication tool called EDI, Electronic Data Interchange. Then we're going to talk about real-time acquisitions options that you have available. We're going to talk about a finance integration. We touched on that just a little bit last week because it was so important to invoicing, but I'm going to hit it again today. We're going to talk about monitoring jobs, and if you've been using Alma, you're doing cataloging work, that shouldn't be anything new, and then some resources. So let's go ahead and start with automating workflows. This is the workflow that we went through over the previous 4 weeks. We started with bid records. We created purchase order lines. Then we packaged them into purchase orders, sent them off to our vendor. Then we started receiving physical materials, and we activated electronic materials. And then last week we did our invoicing. So that finished the entire acquisitions workflow. And this slide is also from the very first week, how we talked about just some of the basic benefits. Automatic inventory creation in Alma, so that the display of information is accurate in Alma, it's accurate in discovery. Also, acquisitions can help you track how money is being spent this year and previous fiscal years as you build up that history. Also, getting cost per use information. If you don't use AC, you will not get cost per use, because that's the whole cost part. And that helps you make your decisions for purchasing, renewing materials, what's being used, what isn't, as you move through each fiscal year. So now, I hope that this series has made you say, yes, we do want to implement acquisitions, and you absolutely can with manual workflows. That is what you've seen me do, our manual workflows. And I do that intentionally because I want you to see where everything is in Alma, what it looks like in Alma, what's happening in Alma. But I want to kind of push you a little bit and really encourage you to look at automating the processes. Using communication standards and files, you can import and export data, reducing having to do double work in multiple systems. With some vendors, you might have to do work in 2 systems in Alma and that vendor system, but in a lot of systems, you won't have to do that. And then not only can you use those communication standards to transfer files, but you can even automate those workflows by scheduling the data transfer of those files. So it's, again, not something that you have to do. You can let Alma go ahead and do that work for you. When it comes to ordering, when I preface all of these workflows I'm talking about, it's dependent on the vendor you're with which you are working. Not all of them will offer automation options, integration options. It depends, it depends on what their capabilities are. Maybe you have some very unique collections. You have, very highly specialized vendors and that aren't going to have a vendor ordering interface and they just want to get purchase order lines via email. That's absolutely fine. So one workflow is that you do manually create an order in 2 systems. One example is Amazon. Amazon has no desire to work with libraries. We actually, in Alma years ago, we had a way to search Amazon and initiate a purchase order in Alma and saving you some clicks. And then Alma made a change to their interface and their whatever is under the hood. And we approached them about rewriting it and they said, no, thanks. So we don't have any sort of Amazon integration. So if that is one of your vendors, yes, you are going to be doing the work in Alma and you'll be doing the work in Amazon. Another potential workflow is creating an order in a vendor system and then import it into Alma. And that is EOD, or embedded order data. We're going to go through that in much more detail. You could also create the order in one system, whether it's the vendor system or in Alma, doesn't matter, and export the file and import it into the other system. So this could be Alma to vendor, vendor to Alma. There's not a wrong way to do it. It's just different formats. If you're working in Alma and exporting an order to a vendor, it could be done via EDI or email. If you're working in that vendor system and importing it into Alma, that's embedded order data. When we talk about invoicing, again, you can manually create invoices in Alma. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. You could do it line by line. You can create them from a purchase order. You saw me do that last week. Well, you saw the video of me doing it last week. And you could also create an invoice via import of an Excel file or an EDI file. You can also create invoices with a scheduled import. So if you have that EDI relationship with one of your vendors, you can just schedule it. Alma will go look for those invoices and bring them right in. You don't have to build them at all. Again, claiming, kind of those same options. You might do your claiming in a specific vendor interface. And so maybe you're going to use Alma just as your notification system, tracking those items. And then you're going to go into that vendor interface to do the claiming there. You can do a manual export of claim data. So you can let Alma send the notice to the vendor, but you'll create it manually in Alma after the notification is generated. Or you can let Alma do that automatically. Let Alma generate the notification, let Alma send the notification, and you don't have to do anything. Remember, I always want to push you to make Alma do the work for you. If you're doing something manually, if you're tracking anything in an external system, an Excel spreadsheet, a shared Google Doc across your department, I would really challenge you to say, do I really have to do that? Is there a way I can find that information, track that information in Alma? And my second rule is don't make things more complicated than they need to be. let's talk about some of the different integration options. The first one talking about import profiles or with embedded order data. So what happens when you use import profiles? The ordering activities done in the vendor interface, and the data can either be manually imported into Alma or automatically. You can schedule it. That file, so you do the work in the vendor interface, that file that is being brought into Alma, it's a mark, a file of marked records, but in those marked records are typically 9XX fields that are that have data about the purchase order line, and items. That's where so that data is embedded in the bibliographic record, and that's where embedded order data comes from. You can, so how you get them into Alma is you create a import profile called, that's a new order type. The staff is working in only one interface, reduced effort on your part, and increased accuracy. When you go to create import profiles in Alma, you do need to be either an acquisitions administrator or a catalog administrator to do that. Now, you might already be very familiar with import profiles in Alma because of the work you do with cataloging. I know some libraries might be small with a not a large staff, and you're kind of doing everything. Other ones you have very specialized staff and everything in between. And I realized that the attendees of this meeting could fall anywhere on that spectrum. But if you are used to doing this in cataloging, it's just a different type of order record. We're going to go through an order or import profile, though, right here in this session. So where you go is under acquisitions, import, and then manage import profiles. You'll see it right here on my screen. Now we're going to move through an import profile, and I'm going to get out of my PowerPoint and get into Alma. Now I want to show you something. If I go to acquisitions, import, manage import profiles, that's where I'm going to go. You will also notice, if you do have that catalog administrator role, under resources, import, manage import profiles. So no matter if you come into manage import profiles under the resources menu or under the acquisitions menu, you're going to the same place. Where the difference is when I go to run the job under acquisitions import, the only import profiles I'm going to see are related to acquisitions. Likewise, under resources import, the only import rules I will see will be under that relate to cataloging and inventory, but not ordering. So that's been designed that way. Let me go back into acquisitions, manage import profiles. Now we have our institution tab. So these are import profiles that have been created in my institution. I did want to draw your attention to the community tab. So other Alma customers have written import profiles and they've chosen to contribute them. You can use these. You can limit this down to the different types of import profiles. Maybe it's a vendor you use. Maybe it's a, oh, here's a DDA. We know it's going to overlay discovery records. What you could do is view what their settings are, copy it into your institution zone. Now, if you are part of a network zone, I did also want to bring this up. If I go here to acquisitions, import, manage import profiles, there is also a network tab here. And so if you do have a network zone, maybe import profiles have been written by that network zone administrator and put here for you to, and you can transfer them again from the network zone to your institution zone. So that helps with consistency, so that those records are going where you expect them to. Okay, I'm going to go back into my Alma, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to my institution, and I'm going to, we have different types of import rules, and what we're going to do is look at new order. Oh, let me show you this before. If I go to add a new one, this is one of my favorite things about Alma. If I look at what does a repository order do, I've got a little brief description. What does update inventory do? You know, so you see a little description about what these different import profiles do. And that helps guide you as to which one you want to choose. Also, I can't say enough about our documentation on this topic. And I do like to show this feature wherever you are. I'm sitting here in import profiles. I say, oh gosh, what do I need to do? I need to know more about this screen. When I'm in here, I can click up in the top right corner and get to the help screen and go to help for this page. And this brings up the web page that is related, or the page in the documentation that's related to the functionality, the page I'm on in Alma, talking about which roles, you know, setting up import profiles, managing them, explaining the fields. So I just wanted to remind you of one of my favorite shortcuts in Alma. So let's go look at one of these new order records. So I'm just going to come in here and click edit. On the profile details tab, there's a profile name that's required. The originating system is also required. Now, this is kind of a long list, and there might be lines in here that really don't relate to your library. You can configure these to disable them if you don't want that long of a list. It doesn't hurt that they're there, but you can definitely limit it down. And I have the file path in the PowerPoint. Import protocol, that's very important. So upload file, that's that manual import of files, or FTP. Are we talking about an FTP? So that's that automated scheduled import. So in both of, and so if I click on FTP, am I importing all the files or just the new ones? What is the scheduler status? Is it active or inactive? If I say yes, I want to schedule this. Do I want Alma to go look for these files 4 times a day, every 6 hours? Do I want Alma to go look once a week? Do I want Alma to go look once a day? These are our options, even down to once a month. So you would just choose the schedule you want and then identify the FTP server. So whether you're using ours, whether you have your own, or whether you're using, maybe the vendor has one that you're going to use, that other FTP site, and you can set that up in here. So I'm going to change this back to upload files because Alma has some required fields if I leave that on the FTP. The status has to be active of this import profile in order for it to show up under the import menu. If it's inactive, it won't show up as available here. Now, if you are familiar with import profiles, the next 3 tabs are no different. Normalization and validation. With the first option here, I can filter out data. So I can have qualifiers on the incoming records and maybe filter some out. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that in every single import rule. Maybe you say, I know what's in these files. I don't need to filter anything out. Do I need to normalize the data? Is there anything I want to scrub out of those bid records before they come in? Maybe not right now. Maybe when you get the full records, there is stuff you want to do. And maybe with the order records, you're fine with whatever they send you. What if there is invalid data in the file? What do you want Alma to do with it? Setting the match profile. As these records come in, Alma needs to look to see if there are matches, and you need to, be aware which record should win, the incoming one or the existing one. Are there any fields you want to preserve, like that embedded order data? Yes, bring in those 9XX fields because I need to create my purchase order. Maybe you are buying a replacement copy. You already have a good bid record. You don't want that yucky brief order record to come in and overlay it. You want the good record to be preserved, but you want to keep those 9XX fields so you can create your purchase order line using the embedded order data. Set management tags, that is, do you want this bid record as you bring them in suppressed from discovery? Do you want them suppressed from external search if someone is coming in and searching you via Z3950? Do you use Alma to synchronize your holdings into OCLC or Libraries Australia? Remember, that's a feature that Alma offers. So that's on that Set Management Tags tab. Now, this is where the embedded order data comes in. On the Inventory Information tab, you might have information about the inventory that Alma is going to create, maybe a material type, maybe a call number, location. So you would just say where to find it and what to plug into those fields. On the PO line information, same thing. Alma's going to go look for, in this case, this one says, this is a print book one-time order. Here's my vendor. I have this USD, so that's my currency. Now, remember these acquisition methods from the purchase order lines. Purchase at vendor system means, I got this wrong this morning. I still get these confused. Purchase at vendor system means Alma is not going to talk to that external system. So this would actually probably need to be set to purchase. So you're doing the work in one system and it's coming in to Alma with this. And so with this import, so we want the acquisition method to be purchase. So a list price with Alma can find that in the 980B. The vendor reference can be found in the 980F. Fund distribution, how we're paying for this, is in the 981. What do we see? Reporting codes that are coming in. Interested user fields, that might be also found. So that's all the data that you could have put in that vendor interface and pulled in here to Alma. The mapping tab here, this comes back to this mapping funds. If you haven't set up when you are doing any work in a vendor system and importing the data into Alma, it does take a little setup time. You have to, share your locations, your fund codes, reporting codes, all that information so that Alma can create that purchase order line without you having to do much to it, if anything. So on this mapping tab, this helps with the fund and location mapping if that wasn't set up properly, if there isn't like a parallel setup from the vendor system into Alma. So that is a new order import profile. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. This is just talking about on the profile details tab, some of those important things I mentioned. Oh, and at the bottom, the status must be active. Okay, we talked about that. The normalization and validation tab, the match profile tab, the set management tab. Inventory information tab, that's so Alma knows what to put in the inventory that it's going to create as a result of this purchase order line. And the PO line information tab, that's the embedded order data. Then the mapping tab. I do have a link back to that documentation, but you can also get it right in Alma. Now, running an import profile, you just go under acquisitions, import. Now you have to go under ACK for these new order ones. You click run from the row action menu, select the file and submit the job. So pretty straightforward here. Acquisitions, import. See how my only options here are new orders, no cataloging, nothing else. So I would choose my rule, I would click run, I would navigate to my file. And then I'd click add and then submit. That will run that job. Now, when you do run a job, it brings you right to this window called Monitor and View Imports. And you can see some in here. From here, I could view the file details, the events, see any imported PO lines that were created. When you're doing this kind of work, my strongest suggestion is test in the sandbox, test in production, and then take it to that next step and schedule that schedule the import so you don't have to do it manually. These are some of the kind of situations I've encountered when talking about this with customers, and they say, okay, the bid records I received with my order are brief. They're not very good. What do I do after that? Well, this is kind of where you work with your cataloging team, and you would say, I'm going to create a separate import profile that's a repository import profile to import those higher quality bid records and merge or overlay existing records as part of the post-receiving workflow. So the improved bid records, so that the matching choices you make in that import profile determines what record wins. Inventory will be linked to the new and improved bid record. What if some of our materials are pre-processed? Well, at that point, you would create an update inventory import profile, another type of import profile, to update that inventory. Things like barcodes, call numbers, whatever processing they're doing for you and filling in for you. And then using that update inventory import profile, it's matching on either the vendor reference number or PO line reference number. What if you have a network zone? I mentioned how there is that file or that tab for network zone import profiles. The key is you need to work with your network zone administrator to determine the workflow. You are not working in an island. You are working cooperatively with that network zone and other libraries. Some network zones have bibs for electronic inventory, others don't. Some usually network zone bibs require minimum standards. What I've seen working with customers in North America is an OCLC number. Brief vendor records may not meet that criteria. So what does the network zone manager want you to do in that case? Know what belongs in the network zone and what belongs in your institution zone. I've worked with groups that maybe their special collections bib records stay in the institution zone. I've worked with groups where maybe reserve record, if items are going on reserve, they keep those in the institution zone. So you have to know kind of what the rules are in your institution zone. And then also to mention how import profiles can be copied from that network zone into the institution zone. So if your network zone manager has created those, you lean on those and use them, but always test. Another type of integration is electronic data interchange, or EDI. Now, EDI, it's not something that Ex Libris wrote. It is an international standard for business-to-business communication. A specific standard, the EDIFACT standard, was written specifically for library book supply, so communication between libraries and vendors, and that's the standard we're writing to. The first thing to ask yourself and say, hey, do the vendors I use actually utilize EDI communication? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this link because I want to show you. Here we go. Here's the developer network, the Ex Libris developer network. It's just developers.exlibrisgroup.com. Let me bump it up one more here. So there's a lot of information here talking about the standard. Now, this is a list of vendors that have, we've successfully verified that they work with Alma using EDI. I do want to also note this. EDI communication should work with any vendor that uses EDI message types, but we just haven't tested it with them. I also want to draw your attention. Oh, let me scroll down just a little bit. What do we need for you to start this? The vendor EDI code, the vendor EDI type, FTP connection details, your codes institution, your EDI code for your institution. Then there are different communication messaging types. There's cancellations, claims, invoices, order responses, orders. So all of those. Not every vendor is going to offer every communication type. And even if they offer something, doesn't mean you have to do it. That's another thing. For instance, ordering. Maybe you want to use embedded order data for ordering, but you're going to use EDI for invoicing. That's absolutely fine too. You want to build a workflow that works for you. So, yep, clicking on these. Oh, let's talk about, purchase orders. Let's say you do want to use EDI Alma pushing it out. This is getting you in a little bit more into the standard, the segments. So that link is in Alma. I'm sorry, in the document. Come on, get out of here. Where is my? There we go. So which workflows does the vendor offer? Which workflows do you want to utilize in your library? That's completely up to you. Benefits of EDI similar to embedded order data. You're working in a single system, no duplicate entry or no duplicate data entry, accuracy of information. Your data transmissions can be manual or automatic, and the different workflows that are supported. Also, remember, dependent on the vendor. Where do you set up EDI settings? It's in the vendor record. So under acquisitions, infrastructure, vendors, select your vendor and go to the EDI information tab. This is a good link talking about message segments, integration options. This is from the CKC, Customer Knowledge Center, or our documentation. Now, looking at that EDI tab, I want to mention there are specific outgoing messages. So this is Alma pushing data to the vendor. The possibility of creating purchase orders and sending them out, claims, sending them out, and order cancellations and sending them out. That work is initiated in Alma. Incoming messages from a vendor. So the vendor into Alma, invoices, and then different types of order responses, like if you have those shelf-ready materials, an order report, and claim responses for cereals. On that EDI tab, there is also that option to automate these processes as well. You don't have to do them manually. Now, earlier in this series, we talked about review rules and approval rules. And I was working with a customer and they had their invoices coming in and they were just automatically approved. And the customer didn't like that. They wanted to look at them first. So this is a time I want to call out to that specific functionality. Remember how we had review rules and approval rules regarding invoices? Don't turn them both on, but one of them. You could go into configuration, acquisitions, invoice, and you would choose, do I want these incoming invoices to be set to review or approval? You pick one and know. So you would choose one, you create a rule that says, hey, if a invoice is created by that external system, by editor, that's the EDI standard, set it to either review or approval, and then your staff will go under the acquisitions, receiving and invoicing to either review invoice or approve invoice to process them and move them through. So test that out again. Make sure you like it. Make sure it's what you want. Now you can take integrations a little bit further in Alma, and we call this real-time integrations. And so you might already be working in one or more of these platforms. Web-based platforms that help you with searching for materials, selection, ordering, might be print or electronic. These also support different acquisitions models. So if you're already using Oasis, Gobi, or Harassowitz, you might want to consider integrating real-time ordering. So now the communication between Alma and one of those systems is through application programming interface tools, some coding. It's a two-way communication, continuous communication between the two systems, Alma and that vendor system. Work is done in one system and shows up in the other within seconds. So you're working in Gobi, you create your purchase order lines, you get them all done, you send them to, Gobi sends them to Alma. Alma immediately sends back a, here's the PO number. And it gets, you do that work in one place, it happens, like I said, within seconds. If you do choose to integrate that, use this type of integration using APIs, there are no files to load or schedule because the two systems are communicating. Now, Ex Libris and ProQuest, we do not charge you to use APIs in Alma or Oasis. I cannot speak to the other vendors, so I would check with your reps. Saw that? There we go. There is a nice overview about real-time acquisitions in the developer network. So let me click on that, bring this up. So here's a little tech blog written by one of our employees talking about the workflow, what it looks like. So there's you, here's that Oasis Gobi Harasowitz, and here's Alma. I also want to point out, there's another thing I want to show you in here, because I think it's really important. This link to say, gosh, maybe I'm not doing this today, but is it worth it for me to look into this? The second link is bringing me into the documentation for real-time ordering. And if you scroll down, this is our current list of vendors that can work through Oasis. And then Gobi. We don't have this for Harasowitz. I just asked our documentation team to, add Harasowitz as a table in here, and the provider names that work in that interface. So if these are your vendors, you might want to investigate that. Okay. Get back in here. Okay. Now there's one more integration I want to talk to you about. It really doesn't fall under, it's not using APIs. There is a product called Rioto. It's written by ProQuest. It's another selection and acquisition solution. If you have noticed in the Alma I've been using that I have one more little element on my Alma menu, and it's this thing called Market. And so it's a marketplace. It's vendor neutral. It's another selection and acquisition solution like Oasis, like Gobi, like Harasowitz, but this one is built actually into Alma. It has been developed by ProQuest. There isn't a cost to use it. There's not a cost to implement it and such. We have a team to do that with you, but I guess there is a minimum dollar amount of orders being placed. I don't know what that is. I don't know any more than that. Rioto is not my product, so I'm just not as familiar with it. But I would also recommend, if we go to this hot link here for Rioto, there is also a list of vendors that are working with that. And I know that this list is growing. So these are the current vendors that are working with Rioto right now. So if you have more questions, reach out to your account manager for that. Okay. The finance or ERP integration, we did touch on that last week. That is Alma talking to your ERP enterprise resource planning system, the business office, right? The people that really cut the checks, the people that really pay the bills. You could do an invoice export. So Alma sends an XML file to an FTP location. The financial system fetches and processes that file. You can also do an invoice import. So if your business office, that financial system, sends a file back to you saying, okay, we paid for, this is the date, this is the voucher number, this is the date it was paid. Alma can fetch that file and process that data. Maybe you're only going to do the export and you're not going to do the import. Maybe your business office doesn't want to do an ingestion, so you're not going to do the export, but they do tell you when things get paid and you want to do the import, and you're going to key in that data into Alma. You have different ways and different choices to make when setting up this integration. When you are working with this, and these slides are also from last week, after you've created an invoice, you've approved it, moved it to the payment system, it'll sit in that ready to be paid status, and that's the invoice was approved and ready to be sent to the ERP. The job just gets scheduled. Alma pushes it out generally, at night, pushes it out to the ERP. And then the invoice could go to waiting for payment. That's the invoice was approved and sent to the ERP, or skipped if you've said, I'm not going to do that. But Alma's waiting for information to come back from that ERP. We cut the check, here's the voucher number, here's the date, etc. Or the invoice status is closed. So you're not doing, either the communication has already happened or you aren't doing any of that communication in Alma. Now, these are the two settings that are key to this waiting for payment and ready to be paid and waiting for payment. So are you planning on integrating with the ERP system? Under configuration, acquisitions, general, other settings? One of the elements there is called invoice skip ERP. True, you're not sending the invoice to the ERP, so Alma will skip that status of waiting for payment. If you are sending it to the ERP, set that to false. Do you receive notification from your ERP that an invoice was paid? So that one is under handle invoice payment. If it's true that you're getting that message back, that message, maybe you're going to get it by email and you're going to enter it manually. Maybe Alma's going to ingest it for you and you're going to get that back automatically. If this one's true and that one's false, the invoice just goes to closed right away. You can also do an orders expert. I guess in some parts of the world, this might be a little more popular. I don't know of a lot of North American schools that do this. When a PO is about to be sent to the vendor, it can be exported to the financial system. Institutions, you can also import orders from your ERP system. And you can also synchronize fund information. So using the fund allocation loader to allocate amounts to the funds in Alma when you get your new budgets. So those are up to you to use those. You don't have to. Monitoring jobs, nothing new here. If you're running other jobs in Alma, manual and scheduled jobs can be monitored and reviewed under the admin menu, manage jobs and sets, monitor jobs. Anything that's actively running is on the running tab, and once they've completed is on the history tab. And this is for manual ones, scheduled ones. So admin, monitor jobs, here's running, here's history. You can always change the date range of looking at these. So far back, do I have 2 copies of this open? I must. Okay. Sorry about that. Monitoring jobs. There we go. The last section here is talking about resources. Remember our knowledge center, the CKC, Customer Knowledge Center. That's our documentation group, knowledge.exlibrisgroup.com. We did create a LibGuide for Alma acquisitions. And don't forget, all of our documentation is indexed in Google. So if you're looking for something, just type in Alma and, invoice creation, Alma ERP integration. You're going to get our documentation. You're going to get the developer network. You might get some customer wikis, see what they're doing. So that's our series. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I don't see any new questions that popped up. This is the series of the dashboard. Oops. Let me go back. I want to put that shortcut in the, this is helpful. I want to put that in the chat one more time in case you weren't here when I put that in there earlier. We also do have premium services. This is, these are paid for services, paid services, one-on-one, individualized for customers that are interested in workflow optimization, individualized training, configuration, those types of things. So we have a team that does that. I want to thank you for sticking with me throughout this whole series. I'm going to get to the end. There we go. Sorry about that. How did I get to the beginning? Let's get back down here. There we go. So any other questions? We've got a few minutes this week. There will be a survey that comes up when we exit the WebEx meeting. So again, I read all the replies. I read all the comments. So anything you have to offer is helpful. I've already made some ideas for changing the next time we run this series. Some of these I want to make a little longer, break down a little more, maybe have another session or two. Because I want to dig in a little deeper and give more time for questions like we had this week. As I mentioned earlier, the PowerPoint on the dashboard is not quite up to date just because I've made some changes. I saw a couple of edits, a couple of formatting things I want to do, but I will ask for my PowerPoint to be reloaded on there along with the Q&A. We had some Q&A questions from earlier today, our first session today. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.